Hello there, and welcome to a special Arty class webinar hosted by Shopkeep Arty, the online platform helping everyone to learn new things, improve their art, and have fun creating. I'm John, and today we're zooming to Cape Town in South Africa to join an internationally acclaimed acrylic artist, Derric van Rensburg. So, without further ado, I'm going to press our grandly named travelometer and we're going to zoom in and say hello to Derric. So let me do that now.
Hello.
So here we go. We're flying into Cape Town, getting closer and closer. It's just up to the north of Cape Town, I think, where we're going now, and we're sort of zooming in. Here we go, and hopefully Derric will be there as we go straight down into the building. And hello, Derric.
Greetings, everyone.
How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. I made this by the skin of my teeth.
I know. I was wondering whether you were going to be there, but you are. You are brilliant. Glad to see you. And so you're obviously a renowned impressionist artist, and you've been based in South Africa for ages, and you've done loads of different abstract wildlife and colourful landscapes and everything, haven't you? You've done loads of exhibitions all around the world, so I'm really looking forward to today. It should be really great fun.
Thank you very much.
Now, while I let you get ready, I'll just finish with my little introduction. This is actually our first Arty class with Derric, and unlike our free 45-minute Arty class webinars, which get oversubscribed, these special Arty webinars guarantee you a place and are more exclusive since we don't live stream. Some of you will have paid to join in live today, but most of you joining us will be our Shopkeep Arty patrons who get access to these special classes for free throughout the entire month of your membership. Ironically, memberships start at the same price per month as it costs to attend this one class, so it really is a no-brainer. There's no hidden fees and you can cancel at any time. So if you do want to find out a little bit more about that, simply head over to shopkeeparty.com and click about in the menu to find out all about our patron program. You really won't regret it. Now, these 1 hour webinars are designed to give you a short, sharp boost of creative inspiration from leading artists around the world, an amazing opportunity to join them live and experience different multicultural influences. We host it live because it's the best way to learn, as you can ask questions directly to the artist as you think of them. We've also got all the materials lists, reference pictures and further information on our website, so it's super easy. Around halfway, we'll pause and I'll ask Derric all about his upcoming 2 to 3 hour workshop webinar, which is coming up in a few weeks. But without further ado now, let's get painting and head off back to Derric. So what should we be doing to start with, Derric?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just show you how to take a previous canvas that you might have discarded, give it a new coat of acrylic in this case, like a primer, use the texture that is underneath and resuscitate the board or the canvas into a new painting. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you different, show everyone different colors, different methods of getting there, and in quite a short time we'll have part of a painting down on canvas, and perhaps you'll all lick your lips and want to come back for more.
Brilliant. Okay, so what's the first step then? What should they do to start with?
All right, so if you use a canvas, use an acrylic primer. My fingers are full of paint, by the way, in case you're looking at that. I haven't painted them for the occasion. They're full of paint because I've just walked out of a different studio and straight into this one. Take your canvas with a previous painting or a brand new canvas, it's up to you. I'm just going to show you how to take a previous canvas, give it a coat of an acrylic primer, or in fact, just acrylic paint. And for that, a varnishing brush. The UK have brilliant varieties of brushes, far more than we do here in the southern tip of Africa. Although we think we're quite smart, but we are behind you. It's a cheap varnishing brush, has quite a sturdy bristle, can take a lot of paint, and when I apply it, I do this sort of thing and get myself a beautiful texture. This has already been prepared. If I had to do it now, it would take too long to dry for the purpose of this demonstration. So a cheap varnishing brush is the first step.
Okay.
I'm going to briefly go through the colors that I've limited myself to. The more colors you have, the more complex the painting becomes. But those who've painted before and are well on the road and or professionals, what I'm going to show you might seem very elementary, so you can just, I wouldn't say ignore what I'm doing, but you'll probably know what I'm doing. And for those who are fresh in the industry, in the art of making art, I'm going to show you the few colors that you need and very few brushes that you need. I've put some of my brushes, if you can see that, into a little folder. They can be carried around very easily. This is, by the way, called a rigger. It has a long, thin bristle, very important one to have. But the others that I like are the flat bristle and the round brush. And you will see from the very few colors that I use, not much is needed to get started. So here they are. Ultramarine blue, French ultramarine, when it's thinned out with a tiny bit of white. I've got two palettes here. I'm working with a big one on the side. This one is so everyone can see what I'm doing. A little bit of white, and the blue that you get from that looks like that. It has a tinge of red in it, so it's becomes a very beautiful blue with a little bit of white. Cobalt, on the other hand, is almost, in some cases, this is, and especially in this case, this is quite a blue shade. Give you an idea of that. Looks like this. I add a little bit of white. It almost tends to go towards turquoise. But there are cobalts and cobalts, and every manufacturer has their specific recipe. So different brands will give you a different kind of cobalt. So it's not always the same thing. The tubes that I'm using, the paint that I'm using will give me that. You can see the difference between that and that. Another primary color. Naphthol red or cadmium red. Looks a bit like that. A little bit of white into it. And it starts to go pink. Cadmium yellow or something like it. Mix those two together and you get an orange. The back of the brush had a little bit of blue on. That was a mistake, but what happens is, put the two together, the more red you add, the warmer the orange, the more yellow you add, obviously, the lighter the orange, but you'd end up with something like that. What is really interesting is when you combine these, you get a terrific shade of gray. So I'm taking yellow, red, and blue, and I hope the camera shows this clearly enough. Very, very light gray.
Yeah, it looks nice, that.
Yeah, a little bit more blue and ultramarine blue, and you get a cool shade of gray. A bit more of the red and yellow together, and you'd get a warmer shade. And there are literally 50 shades.
And will Jennifer's asked, will you be mixing with water, just from a preparation?
Yes, I use water, but with acrylic, depending on your style, and nothing I do is written in stone. You can quote me if you like. You can read as many books as you like. Eventually, you will find your own methodology. So some books will tell you to use this and not that, and so on. Eventually, you'll find your own way. The books are fine. They give you instruction, and then they give you sort of a science and a method. But just remember, every person who writes a book, it is just one person's opinion. And there are literally thousands of books available in the market, and thousands of opinions about what is good art and bad art and modern art, etc., etc. This is my method. The only other color that I want to mention is black tends to die a death, just as white will die a death. This is Prussian blue, which is a color I particularly like. Now, if I mix a tiny bit of white into that, this is what I'm going to get. It almost sometimes looks like Payne's gray or shades of Payne's gray. But as a color, when it dries, it's just, it doesn't die. In the same way, white tends to die on its own. It's quite a negative color. There's my white. If I add the tiniest drop of yellow, let's say cadmium yellow, and I mix that into that, the white immediately sparkles and looks whiter than white. So titanium white would be the last color that I would add to a painting. The very final color would be pure white. Generally, you'll see me work with this yellow and white combination, and at times I'll add more white, and as I add more white, you'll notice that it becomes brighter and brighter. So there are lots of shades of white. And these literally are the few colors that I restrict my color palette to when I'm doing workshops and so on. When I work for myself, obviously I've got many colors that I add, and so should you. But if you're just wanting a limited palette and a way to get started, here's a way to get started. So let me tackle the picture that it's a random picture. There's an area near to where we are at the moment, a beautiful forest called Newlands, and Newlands being famous as a one-time rugby ground, the tremendous forests, and then the slopes of Table Mountain follow. So this is just a random scene of a Newlands forest with trees, a path running through, and I thought it might be a nice, simple way to get going.
Great.
John, if you want to interject at any time or ask a question, please do that.
No problem. I think if we can crack on, because the time will pass very quickly. We're already a quarter of the way through. So
Okay.
yeah, I think it'd be good to kind of because I think everybody will be
Okay.
ready with the reference photo and everything. So I think that'll be
Okay.
fantastic.
All right. Here we go. So I could, and when I do these workshops, I work very, very quickly. I don't give myself a lot of time to think. I just put down a ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, just to carry the background. Now, the reason the color that I used to put a surface to this canvas board is a very soft. Well, it's the white with yellow. So I've already got a soft color there. I'm bringing in a little bit of gray blue and very roughly working it into the surface. You see, with acrylic, you can give it quite a scrub. It's a very robust product. The rigor that I mentioned that is indispensable as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to mix a little bit of red into the Prussian blue. I'm going to, as if it was a piece of chalk, scribble in the trees, the design of the trees, the composition and the weight of where I want a lot of trees, and it thins out to my left. And I'll just indicate that there.
Now, Trina's asked, are your paints a heavy body or a medium lighter body?
Very medium, very medium. So they are heavy bodied, sort of thicker than toothpaste, I suppose. This one is something like toothpaste, if I could describe it that way.
Okay.
Here's the reason that you should go and search in your attics or garage and find yourselves old discarded brushes. They're absolutely wonderful, as I will show you in a minute. So the blue and the yellow I'm putting together, and I'm going to go from right to left or sideways, because these pine trees, the leaves seem to come out this way, the branches supporting these leaves, sort of sideways design. Trees are very different in different parts of the world. And there we go. Another thing that's really useful, if you can get yourselves blades, another wonderful tool. Hardware stores are where you want to go shopping.
And probably a lot cheaper than art shops, I would imagine.
Yes, and yeah, they would be for these kind of tools.
Yeah.
And to me, everything is a tool. The fact that it's called this, that, or the other is, to me, yeah, if I can find something that has a rubbery surface, and I think I can use it in my paintings, that's exactly what I do. So I spend as much time in hardware stores as I do in art shops.
Yeah. Yeah, Trina said hardware stores definitely have the best tools for painting with acrylics.
Very, very definitely. So now I could spend ages putting this down with a brush and really getting my head down and fiddling. But I tend to work very quickly when I demonstrate. I work just as quickly, or almost as quickly, when I'm doing this for myself. One of the great things with these blades, as you'll see, you can take paint out of it and then scratch back into it. So I'm putting paint on, taking paint off. Reminds me of a movie many years ago. You remember that? Put on, take off.
I can't remember that. Maybe I'm.
I forget what it's called, but it had a hell of a lot of judo and karate. Karate Kid.
Oh, Karate Kid. I know
Karate
the one.
Kid,
Yeah.
And his
He's hanging up
mentor,
the coat and take off, and
that's
yeah,
right,
I
got his arm.
Yes.
Got his arms well developed by putting on and taking off. That's what I'm doing here with this one. So the colors that I'm using here are red into the Prussian blue, so no sight of black, and I'll scratch into it. The surface of the canvas can handle it. Don't obviously do this, just work sideways. And against the previous painting that was underneath and the texture that it has left, I've got myself almost an instant sense of forest here. This very messy brush, I'll use a bigger one as I get to the center part of this. Pulling colors out of the trunks, adding a little bit of yellow to soften the color. If I compare the UK to this country, the greens that you have are in many cases vivid and almost a kind of blue green, it seems. Whereas here we have lots of various colors, obviously, but khaki seems predominant. So if you're looking at colors at the moment and thinking, well, that's not what it looks like around here, just remember I'm on the southern tip of Africa and you're freezing in wherever you are. Sorry about that.
Sandra's asked, do you have a favorite brand of paint?
Brand of paint? In this case, now if I give you the brand, you're not maybe going to know it unless you're from South Africa. This is a locally made paint called Zelen. The paint that I used to use, and you can get freely in the UK, is Rowney.
Oh, yes,
so
Rowney.
Winsor Newton, Rowney, any of those products, absolutely top class. And that's the one that I would suggest everyone goes for. Buy yourself a decent paint. This is a decent paint at a very decent price. And it's color fast. The pigments are German. It will last. The fact that it's cheaper is just that it is locally made, and it's made for a slightly different purpose. So people who turn their noses up at paint, that might just be tradition. You think, well, I shouldn't really be using a cheap paint.
So this is our second question of what the tool is that you're using, and it's just literally out of a craft knife, isn't it? Like a Stanley knife. It's the extent.
It is a Stanley knife. It is a Stanley knife, so that you're familiar with a Stanley knife.
And you can just pull the blade out, can't you? And it's the blade element of the Stanley knife.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If I put it there, can you see it?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Okay. So that's a Stanley blade. This is the one that fits into those cutters.
Long extendable things, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So all of these are incredibly useful. While this is drying, and by the way, when you're doing this, water is the enemy. It depends very much on what you're trying to achieve. But in the case of this particular painting and a lot of what I do, I work with acrylic straight. I don't water it down at all. What I might do is add a varnish to it, and so that it becomes thinner, and I use it as a glaze medium. I'm going to do something that you can do when the paint is on the way to drying, and if it has previous paint under it, and that is to drag my blade, and with a bit of luck, you get a happy accident that looks something like that. So it takes, you're scraping paint off and exposing a color that lies underneath. I'm going to add some of these branches off here.
Would you be able to maybe just hold your canvas up slightly to the camera, you know, like we did yesterday, and just so that we can get the,
Okay.
so that we can see that texture on the trees that you've just scraped. Sorry, I didn't realize it was stuck down.
Does that help you at all?
Yeah, just a bit close. Yeah, there you go. Just so you can see where the scrape's down. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great technique. Jennifer says, that's amazing.
It's lots of fun. And, you know, when you paint, that's intense enough. It's in a way like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, trying to decide what brushstroke follows what. But when you start to play with other tools and things, you find yourself entering into a kind of fantasy, which I'm doing here. So although I'm working from a photograph, the photograph is my starting point.
Yeah.
But I'm the author, so I'm going to take what is commonly known as artistic license and tell a story my way. Okay, here come the blades again. So I'll hold the painting. I'll hold the painting up to the camera just now. I'm going to scratch out.
And so you're varying the angle of the knife to signify the branches.
Yeah. Yes. I'll hold it up to the camera in a moment. A little bit of light off the one side of the trunk. Just hold that a little closer. I don't know if that's any clearer for you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Now, Sandra has said, can Derric tell us about his artistic background? But you're originally a watercolor painter, weren't you, in the old days?
I'm originally a watercolorist. So growing up, I wasn't convinced, and definitely my parents were not convinced that art was a good career. It was better to find a proper job. But unfortunately for them, art won out. And so I had to treat what I do as a business, which means lots of choices. One is that you go commercial, or you become a fine artist in the sense that you produce so-called high art, which is a completely different genre and takes a different frame of reference. I studied graphic art. So I thought, well, if I've got to get a proper job, maybe a commercial artist is the way to go. That's perhaps what I want to be. The problem that I found was that if you're an illustrator for an advertising agency, for instance, you're then asked specifically to illustrate what the client wants. So commissions can be tough enough. Being an illustrator is a different brand of urgency. You've got to produce what the client wants and what the agency wants. And I discovered that quite early on. I also discovered that a lot of the artists in this country anyway, and I would imagine around the world, started their careers as commercial artists. So it's a very, very good training and a very good way to start. So my background was almost deliberately commercial because I had to make a living from it. I didn't have the luxury of painting when the spirit kind of moved me. So I had little choice. This was the choice that I made. Today, I'm very pleased I made that choice.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for the commercial training, but I've chosen to be a fine artist, and the brand that I have has been developed over quite a few years.
Yeah. Now,
And
just to
it
let
got
you
to
know,
a
we're
place
sort of
where- it
we're
just
sort
got to
of
a place
nearing
where-
the halfway stage now, Derrick. So, I
Yeah.
wonder, do you think now would be a good time to just, before you start putting the sky bits in or whatever, do you think it'd be a good time
Yeah.
to just pause for a moment now?
Absolutely.
How are you enjoying it? It's fascinating, isn't it? How Derrick was just able to create a real sense of the depth of that forest in just such a short space of time. So really amazing. Now, although we don't live stream these special shows like our Tuesday classes, we do publish it later on YouTube for a limited period. So if you're watching this recording, we'd really appreciate it if you could give us a thumbs up and press that button. It just kind of spreads it across the YouTube platform and just introduces them to inspiring art. So thank you very much. Also, if you're a subscriber to our YouTube channel, we're going to be randomly picking a subscriber next month to enjoy a live 2 to 3 hour workshop of their choice in the following month for free. All you need to do is click the red button on YouTube below that says subscribe, and you'll subscribe to our channel, and then you'll be entered into that competition for free. So do go ahead and do that. In addition to these 1 hour classes, the secret sauce of what we provide, and what I personally believe is the most effective way of boosting your skills to the next level, is our full 2 to 3 hour workshop webinars. As you can tell, just in this first half an hour with Derrick, there's loads and loads of information that they're willing to impart, and we can't really get through all that in an hour. And 2 to 3 hours really means that you can go through an entire painting from start to finish. We also invite you in so you can talk direct to the artist as well. So it's a lot more immersive and more restrictive numbers. So it's a really great way of picking up their tips and little tricks as well. The price to attend is just £38, or equivalent about $50 US, which works out at about £12 or $17 an hour. So it's really, really great value. We'll be hosting Derrick's full workshop in a couple of weeks, the beginning of next month on the 4th of March, Thursday the 4th, at 3:30 in the afternoon UK time. So it gives you enough time to clear your diary and get all those materials ready as well. So Derrick, what are you planning on doing in your workshop?
The scene that I probably will do, it might include a forest, but it will certainly be water. So I'll show different elements of foliage, water, the application, how to get water to feel as if it's running, and possibly a building or two, so that landscape can become everything: foliage, grass, water, buildings, sky. I'll try and include everything in that workshop.
Yeah, I mean, the reference painting that you've supplied to us is, I'll share my screen now, is this one. So it's got that lake in the foreground. You've got the buildings in the background with the tree elements. So it'll be similar to this, won't it? But not obviously identical.
It will be.
Yeah.
That is an estuary in a place called Neisner, which is on our east coast, commonly called the Garden Route.
Yeah.
It's tidal, quite a lot of sailing, very, very tranquil, magical place. I just love being there, and I go up to Neisner to teach workshops and have done for the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So there's lots of scenery to choose from. That particular picture just includes those elements that I mentioned: trees, foliage, grasses, water, a building. We'll put in some sky just for fun,
Yeah.
and it will really cover everything.
Yeah, which is great because there'll be so many different techniques for all the different elements of that
Yeah.
painting, which will be fantastic. What I'll do is I'll just share my screen and then you can see how easy it is to just go and book that ticket. So you literally visit our website, shopkeeparty.com, and click on upcoming events. And it will then take you to our page. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Derric's one coming up just there. Click on the workshop button and it goes through to the page that will explain all about the workshop. It's also got a video as well, which is worth watching, which is a sped up version of Derric actually doing it from start to finish to give you an idea of how to do it. We list all the materials. We've got a 10% off deal from an art supplier that ships globally if you want to pick up a few more deals at a good price. And then go up to the top, and then if you want to book the webinar ticket or pre-order the video, you click on that link and it goes through to Derric's shop, and then you can either purchase the live webinar ticket or the video. And the video has two prices: a full price video, but if you've attended the webinar, you get a big discount on the video as well. And then once we've launched that and we've done the webinar, you'll be able to access the video at any time, so long as you've purchased that and we've unlocked it for you from this. That's a neighbour of yours, Rhino Swart, Derric. And you'll be able to purchase it from our video library there. So hopefully that helps. Right, let's go back to Derric now, and we will continue with the second half. Hello, Derric.
Hi, John. Thank you very much indeed for that lovely explanation.
Right. So, what are we going to be working on now on this scene? You're adding a little bit of blue.
So I'm adding a little blue and just encroaching in on the green that I've got. The painting, while you were chatting, was drying. Acrylic dries very quickly, and that's why I prefer it to oil. Doesn't make it a better product, it just makes it different. It's water soluble, it dries very quickly. In a warm climate, obviously very, very quickly. So plein air painting, you've really got to give it welly and paint and put your thoughts down quite quickly. That in itself is a lovely challenge. I do find, if I could say this to any artist or someone starting up, the more time you take, the more you'll fiddle. There's a great advantage to taking your watch off, or maybe not taking it off, and setting yourself a specific time, an hour or two or three, as I'm going to do with my workshop, and put yourself to the test and see how much you can complete in that time. Very often, I look at my demos, and when I do the paintings that I sell at galleries, I think, well, if only it was as good as the demo, I'd be okay. So I love a certain amount of pressure, and I'm putting myself under a certain amount of pressure now.
Now, Lenore said that they've painted in Neisner with a guy called Dale Elliott. Do you know him?
Quite right. Yes. I don't know if Dale is still alive. He was very ill a while ago, and his son Mel seems to have taken over the business, but he's very well known. He promoted the Winsor Newton product, has a very good setup in Neisner. He moved to a small town called Villiersdorp. Don't expect you to remember that name. But that's inland, and it's a little town, very, very pretty, and kind of, I don't know if he reinvented himself, but he just, he was very big in Neisner and then moved to Villiersdorp. So perhaps he wanted a quieter life, I don't know. But yes, I don't know him. I've met his son, but I certainly knew all about him, and he was certainly very popular here.
Yeah. Lando's given you a great compliment, saying much more exciting than Bob Ross. Astonishing.
I'll remember to bring a wig.
Yes, exactly. Brilliant. And Sandra asked, did you go to art school at all?
I went to art school, yes. And so to get in, you had to be able to paint and draw. And what we learned was composition, how to divide a canvas or a sheet of paper up to a design that will sit comfortably, certainly for the artist and then for the viewer. So there are principles like, 3/4 of the way down the page or down the canvas, and all of that I haven't taken too much time explaining. That is almost a separate class of its own, but when I do my workshops, which are usually 5 hours or thereabout, I do go through composition, and I think with the next one I will explain myself more fully, showing you how to break up the surface, whatever surface artists want to work on, and how to recognize where the visual, the point of the painting. There will be it might be a building, or it could be anything, but the eye has to settle on something so that the viewer can go away and say, I've never been there. I get the feeling that I could have been there, but the thing that really got me was the little building or the shed or the house in the landscape. So that's what I will do next week.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. It is a fascinating thing on the preparation before actually embarking on your painting. It's kind of thinking about the journey you're wanting to take the viewer's eye, isn't it? And trying to around the painting, where do you want to focus in on? And it's a fascinating subject, that.
Yeah. So in this case, my focus would be the path in this will run to who knows where, and I will take the viewer to a place where they think, I wonder what's around the corner.
Yes.
So I've accented with perhaps light. So there's quite a lot of light in the middle of this picture, which would bring the eye to this particular point. You'll notice the space between here and here is greater than the space here. So I've even gone not quite 3/4, but a great deal of space has been taken up here, a lot less over here.
Yeah.
So this will just tell you that there is more forest, but I'm not going to tell you what it looks like. The viewer can fantasize about that and wonder what that forest might look like. So
with regards to your next, sorry, Dave. With regards to your next workshop, Louise has asked, will they need to draw the picture out beforehand on the canvas, or what would you suggest?
They can, and it's very, very elementary. Drawing is an art and a science all of its own, and I'm not going to dwell on drawing and drawing techniques so much as the painting. So the drawing I will do will plot the shape of the trees, the lie of the land, where the buildings will be. And once I've got those little structures, which don't take long at all, I then just set about painting almost immediately.
So they could do that along with you, really, couldn't they?
They could do it, absolutely, and it won't steal from the painting time. I think they'd get a lot of benefit from drawing the basic shapes, so they just know where they're going.
Yeah.
There are little things that are critical that I didn't mention now, like perspective. So a house going off at a certain angle, the shape of the roof will do different things depending where you want that building to go. And that also is quite exciting, trying to get your composition to look really interesting and keep the viewer locked in to the story behind the painting. So writers write and poets speak, right? And artists paint. So painting is the painted word. Writing, authors use the written word, as do poets, or the oral spoken word. This is the painted word. So I'm not a writer. I'm best with a brush and paint. This is how I tell my story. All the while, I'm coming back into with a very, very dry brush. You haven't seen me use any water, and I'm just working over. I'm working over an area that is now dried. The texture is there, and it's very dry brush. Almost, there's a word called scumbling. Perhaps you could use that word. And the brush I'm holding, I hold lightly in my hand. So I'm not taking it like a pencil and drawing. I'm allowing the brush almost to automatically find its own way. What I'm going to do, John, is start to move to the left. There'll be less information, as I said.
Or do you think, because we don't have much time left, do you think it would be worthwhile doing a little bit of the top of the road, or so that we've got that journey up?
I could certainly do that. What I'll do with this varnishing brush, is I will indicate where this part of the forest is going to be. There are very, very few bits of foliage. I'm using the texture of the paint that I put down first and allow to dry. So it almost, I don't know if you can see that a little better. Very, very thin. The left is a whole lot thinner and lighter than the right. I'll put in a bit of ground just to literally ground these trees. And then I'll illustrate where the path would go, just so that the viewer can see where I'm going with this. I'm going to drag a little bit of that yellow, cadmium yellow, and the brush is dirty, so there are other colors on there. And I'll just give a hint and put a little bit here. You can already see there's a gap.
Yeah.
Waiting for something to happen. So with that rigger brush that I'll use, I said, as almost a piece of charcoal, my road is going to come from here, make it quite broad. This one would come in this direction. You can already see from that where my head is. I'm going to just add a little bit of grasses. And because this brush, I can't emphasize it enough. It is, look at that. No effort at all.
Yeah.
And you've got, well, it's open to interpretation. It might be a kind of flower, and it might just be grass, and it might be reeds. Next week, when we do our water and the estuary and the reeds in it, this is what I'm going to use. And you can see from the limited palette that you can achieve a whole lot.
Mm.
Also useful for those who haven't haven't got enormous amounts of space and, can work with a little wallet of brushes like this and a smallish canvas, you really don't need a lot of space. Even if you just decide that you want to treat the painting as a kind of an advanced sketch. I'm bringing in a little bit of the cobalt into the yellow. I'm going to get, as you can see,
Jennifer says she's amazed at what you can do with such a large varnish brush. Must get one, she says.
Yeah, you got to get into those garages and attics and go to friends and just say, I'm looking for all the brushes that you don't need.
Yeah.
Be surprised. They might be happy to get rid of them, and you'll probably be the pleased recipient. Now, I'm not following the photograph in terms of color. I'm bringing in colors and things that I feel like putting in. As I said, I'm the author of this painting. Although I have a reference to work with, I can decide to do what I like and describe it as I like. And so there'll be paint colors that don't reflect realistically the photograph that I'm using. And then I'd say to that, so what? I'm going to use the titanium white, the colors that I've got on this tiny little palette. I'm going to not clean the brush. In fact, I'm going to use what is there. I'm going to use the French ultramarine, a little bit of red, and I'm going to describe the path this way.
Oh, really simple. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Sharifa watched you do that pathway and said, I have to sign up for this class for sure. Thank you.
Oh, I'd love to have you along, John, if you would. So I'll take this color right into the foliage. So it's not just green or yellow and then a path. And the path will have other colors. So I'll use the other red that I had. Let's just call it cadmium red for simplicity. Put a little bit of, I think, what have we got? 3 minutes, 2 minutes? I'll just warm up the path slightly. So on top of this kind of purple color, which I got from the blue and the red, a little bit of warmth. And with another brush, I'll bring in a little bit of light just to show you that the light reflected through the trees will illustrate the shape of the ground. So in places it's obviously concave. So I'd allow the light to go through like that. Just pick up traces of light. The light here. And just the light that I said I would put in this part of the path, I'll carry it through there, just teasing the eye. So it feels like a corner.
Gosh, you make it look so effortless, Derric. It's amazing.
Well, it's fun, and I would encourage anyone, come with the canvas or the substrate you want to work on. But how about putting yourself to the test? if you sign up, get a canvas that you've previously used and you're not that crazy about the painting, or a new canvas and just put a new texture on it and use this very rough brush, the varnishing brush, and paint quite haphazardly, say from the center out, crisscross, cross hatching. Let it dry, bone dry, and then paint on that. And I think you will be pleasantly surprised that with not too much effort, you'll be able to achieve incredible results, beautiful textures, and tell an interesting story, the painted word.
No, that sounds amazing. And how did you get on at home? Wasn't that just an inspiring arty class? It was really amazing, and some of the techniques Derric showed there were fabulous. Really looking forward to seeing what you've created at home, either now or later when you feel like you finish something off. We've created a post on our Facebook page, so simply visit Facebook, type in Shopkeep Arty, you'll see the post there for Derric's class, and literally take a photo of your painting and share it on there. It's fantastic. If you've got any comments, by the way, that you want me to pass on to Derric before we finish, just start writing those now. I can see some of them coming in on the Q&A, and I'll pass that to him a little in a moment. So the Facebook page is the best place to go and do it. We always have so many paintings posted on there, and also if you like others that you see, it's always fascinating to see what everyone else's interpretation of a scene is. By all means, like them and share it. It's a really nice little community we've got going on there, and I'm hoping Derric's sort of nodding a bit, but Derric will go and have a little look at some of them as well. You might even get your own little comment from Derric, so yeah, by all means share away, because it's a really great little place to see what everybody else is coming up with from the class. A fantastic arty class there. I think it went really well, and I was amazed. And I will go back to the painting at the end before we say goodbye to Derric as well, just to show the final painting. We've got a few other things coming up. I'm off in about half an hour, starting with David Bellamy. We're doing watercolour. I'm going back to Wales. We're going to be featuring him in his workshop. So if I'm going to be seeing you there, I look forward to seeing you then. If not, I hope you'll join me for our free arty class next Tuesday, when we're going to Minnesota, and we're going to be with a watercolourist over there, David R. Smith, his name is. So that will be a fantastic arty class then as well. Thank you for joining us. It's goodbye from me, but obviously thank you so much to Derric, and I'll just read some comments out to you, Derric. So very cool technique from Christelle. Thanks for sharing those tips with us. Love the colours from Sandra. Trina, I'm looking forward to Derric's workshop next month. Sue, absolutely brilliant, thank you. Bev, fabulous as always, Derric. That's Bev Hudson. Janet, incredible. Trina, thank you, John and Derric. This was fabulous. Cynthia, what an amazing demonstration. I've been to Neisner and recognised the location of Derric's upcoming class. Even though I paint in watercolours, I need to sign up for this lesson. So that was great. Louise, brilliant. Thanks very much. Carl, this was magical and inspirational. Stella, many thanks, Derric. Great to see you again. That was Stella Isaac. Elsie, I've been there. It's the road on the farm in Neisner. You are amazing. Jennifer, thank you for a brilliant workshop. I'll be painting with my acrylics and get a big varnish brush. Trina, I'll see you there, John. Thank you so much, Derric. It's been a fascinating insight into how you teach and your art as well. And I know that you do such amazing things, like some of your abstract animal things that you do as well. Maybe in future workshops could be a really great workshop for us to get involved with as well. But it's been absolutely fascinating. I'll finish off on your painting, but before I do that, a round of applause for Derric. Thank you. Yay. Thank you, Derric, and until the workshop, looking forward to it. Take care.